For a month now, I've been thinking about a dead woman who stopped a light rail. How she willed a 1,000-pound box of metal to stop beating in time with her heart. But the city barely noticed. I guess I believe in destiny because the other day the light rail stopped and opened its doors right in front of me. I got on. Does that mean I'm already dead? The man who sat next to me was doing a crossword. The way his pen moved across the paper reminds me of a light rail in Minneapolis. Black and white lines on a page dividing itself into boxes. Sometimes, when two trains pass by each other, I lose track of who's who in the reflection. And I lose track of where I'm going or why I'm going there. And sometimes, when two people walk by each other on the sidewalk and their eyes glow like mirrors, I lose track of who's who. And I lose track of where she was and no longer is. I lose track of why she did it. 13 people have died on the tracks since they were installed. Is that destiny? Or did they know that the train was coming and being unable to bear the thought of another door, did they turn themselves into the word open instead? At $2 a trip, 13 people cost $26, but during rush hour, they'd be worth $32.50 that day. I think I had to take the 18 to get around her. Is the city full? Sick of eating people who stop light rails? It was over too fast because she cost too much lying there in the intersection of 35th and Highway 55. On the light rail, during blizzards, it is still possible to hear stories and laughter from before the sidewalks were plastered with white on the light rail. Amidst masses of white specks falling on city streets and calling it their own, there are still the people who, without which there would be nothing for snow to fall on the light rail. I am only ever a passenger propped up behind a window made out of privilege. Why is it that light rails are worth more than people? For a month now, I've been thinking about a dead woman who stopped a light rail. Only momentarily. Until the city remembered it didn't care.
Dang. Okay. That was really, really good. Thank you for sharing your piece.
Yeah,
and could you tell us what it was about?
So this piece is sort of a culmination of me just thinking about my place in Minneapolis, and specifically discussing, things I've seen on the light rail or public transit as I'm prepared to leave Minneapolis for college. So it's me sort of just thinking about restoring the humanity into a lot of what goes on in the city in terms of city planning or just being a citizen and taking the light rail.
I think it's somewhere in there you said, why is a light rail more important than people? Is that what you said? Tell me about that line.
So that line, so throughout the poem, it sort of focuses on, I read this story about someone who committed suicide by putting themselves in front of the light rail. And so that image and that idea and the thoughts I had about that are sort of thinking about how the human life in that scenario was less important than the light rail. And that's sort of connecting into the idea of sometimes people who make decisions about what happens with public transit and what happens with planning, things as simple as bus routes to where the next light rail train is going to go, aren't always in tune with the people who will be taking those transit methods or the people involved sort of beyond themselves. So it's just questioning why in the city that I live in that happens, and that sort of highlighting that we should be focusing more on people and less on just like building a train because we want to build a train.
Right. Who is this poem for? Was it for you or is it for us?
It's for, that's a tough question. I think it's for a lot of people. It's for obviously the person who committed suicide. It's also for myself. Just, I wrote it originally as like a stream of consciousness piece, just really to put myself in Minneapolis, and then also just so other people who may feel the way I do or just have not thought about that, to sort of see where I'm coming from and maybe reflect on how they're involved in all those decisions.
The poem had so much specificity in it, which I really liked. I'm a huge fan of those details, and I'm so glad that you brought those type of details to Las Vegas, because you want to hear yourself in a poem. So when I hear the 18, I go, I've been on the bus line. I know it costs more at rush hour. Like you give these moments that again probably creates the most stickiness for Minnesotans, but to export a thick version of Minneapolis that isn't just shorthand and says, oh yeah, like we got the Twins or we got the big mall or something, to give some depth to it. I really appreciate what you did. So.
It was fun, right?
Mark, thank you so much for your poem tonight.
Thank you all.
Good job.